Darien Gap, you live in Panama. You have been there multiple times. I have been there only 3 times. Right now, it is flooded. It has more than 2,200 and 2,500 that they're leaving from Colombia into the Panamanian migrant camps as Lajas Blancas, San Vicente, Bajo Chiquito. You already know these areas. This is a massive influx. I talked to several people on the center front, the border officials of Panama. They're saying that they have never seen something like this ever in their life. That is flooded right now as not like from a long time ago.
Yeah.
And all of these people are coming right now into the north. You already know that they're coming to the United States of America. They're talking about that more than 38,000, Chuck. They are arriving on the month of August. That is a
Just the month of
huge,
August.
just
Incredible.
is a huge amount
Nearly
of people.
300,000 already this year. That is a record beyond all records. Oscar, of course, I'm coming to you from Panama now. I live in Panama full time. And I have been reporting on the migrant crisis coming through the Darien Gap. The first time I went down there was 2007, and it was happening then. And I went and started doing more and more reporting in 2012. I made a documentary about it in 2012. And I've been down there multiple times every year since. And I can tell you now, what we're seeing is that the amount of people coming through in a month now would have been considered a record year back then. And the Panamanian people are losing their minds over this. You watch the local news around here, and even in the areas that are as far from the Darien as you can get, near the Costa Rican border, the indigenous tribes up there are just absolutely done with the number of people coming through their country. And these people are not even staying; they're just coming through. But they're causing such a drain on the society here. And they're what we saw just today, that video I sent you right before we went live, was from, I think, Lajas Blancas, where I've never seen so many people there ever. And it looked like 8,000 people packed in there. And they were fed up and waiting for buses because it's raining on them. There's nothing but mud to sit in. And they're in terrible condition already, having just made it through the Darien Gap. And so they're saying, screw it, we're going to walk. And they were busting through the gates and leaving. I mean, what are the half a dozen center front guards going to do against 6,000 or 8,000 angry Venezuelans? Nothing. So they're just blowing through the gates, and they're going to be walking down the road. So I may be driving down there tomorrow or the next day to get a better look at that, because that's rarely happened. It has happened in the past where migrants have gotten tired of waiting for the smugglers. In this case, the smuggler is the Panamanian government, to send them the buses that they need to get to the United States. But it's rare that it's been in such numbers. And if we've got 8,000 or 10,000 migrants strung out along the road, camping, coming through all these villages all the way up to Panama City, you are going to see a huge political fallout for the Panamanian government here, because one of the reasons why the Panamanian government has been quickly busing these people to the Costa Rican border is because they're trying to hide the effects of so many migrants from their own people, because obviously the people here in Panama are not going to be happy with that.
Now, do you think that some cities in the United States are going, and not to collapse? I don't want to aggravate that word, but in New York, there's actually a huge problem. It's a big problem. And the migrants are not well educated to understand that when they get the process how it's supposed to be done, they're expecting all of this, and there's a self-entitlement stuff. And a lot of the migrants are self-entitled to say, no, you told me that I was going to get a room, I was going to get a phone, I was going to get a job, you need to teach me, you need to train me. What is going to happen? Do you think that other cities are going to all be overrun? Because New York is right now having a huge problem with this. What do you think is going to happen to other cities?
Listen, New York had a huge problem with it long before they started crying about it. But they didn't want to cry about it because the apportionment issue, which I'm sure we've talked about before, you and I, when it comes to apportionment, that is, every 10 years they do the census in the United States. And when they do the census, they apportion the number of representatives to each state, a congressman out of the 432 congressmen to each state, based on the sheer number of bodies in those regions. And so the reason they had these sanctuary cities to begin with was because they wanted to attract as many bodies as possible into those areas so that they would have higher numbers for the apportionment issue. And by some measures, the Democrats picked up 4 seats in the last election, or in the last census, because of apportionment. So they had, this is one way that illegal aliens can actually have a vote, so to speak, in U.S. politics. It's just by being somewhere, their bodies count. That was one of the reasons why Trump wanted to add a citizenship question on the census last time, and the left went absolutely bonkers over that and wouldn't allow it, because if we put a citizenship question on the census, then we could theoretically remove all of those people from the count, and that wouldn't help the left gain more seats through apportionment.
Well, that will be
But
easily
once
fixed, Chuck. It
once,
will be easily fixed with a voter ID, like
oh yeah,
Mexico. It will be easily fixed.
no, but they're not voting at the polls. They're not going to the polls and voting. They're just being in Los Angeles, for example. By being there, they count the number of persons, not the number of citizens.
I get you. I get you.
So if they have an extra 700,000 persons in Los Angeles because of illegal migration, that's going to get another congressman given to California, then taken away from like Kansas or someplace. Okay. And so that works right up until till 2020, till we do the census. After 2020, then that is no longer a benefit for another 10 years. And so now these guys want to get these migrants out of their cities, and they want to send them to someplace that, like a red state, to turn the red state purple. So now what they want to do is they want to just get rid of these migrants, and that's why they're starting to cry about it. So New York and Los Angeles and Detroit and all these places, they were suffering from the migration crisis very badly before, but they just weren't saying anything about it. They were gritting their teeth and bearing it until the census was over. And now they're jumping on the bandwagon and saying, get these people out of here, send them to Kansas, send them to Texas, because they want to turn Texas blue. And one of the ways they hope to do that is through intensive numbers of illegal migrants.
Was an international agreement between 3 countries 2 months ago. The United States, the Biden administration went down to Panama and Colombia also, and with Panama, and they agreed that they were going to try to fight this off, and they were trying to fight the organized crime and the cartel. Panama, it is the only one that is doing something about it. They created this operation that is called Operation Choco, Operation Shield. Darien is not a route. What the hell happened, Chuck? Like it's really unbelievable, the irresponsibility right now of the Biden administration. It is just unbelievable, and it's unprecedented also on the terms of Colombia, because the Panamanian government, they're extremely upset right now at the Colombian government because they're letting them pass through Acandí, through Capurganá, all the way to their borders. What is your perception on that?
How does it look to our allies and our adversaries when we come down here a few months ago and Mayorkas makes a deal to help our allies, and then literally reneges on it before his plane takes off? He has literally done nothing. They said they were going to close down the Darien Gap. You remember that? For 60 days. They said they were going to close it completely for 60 days. And then he got on the plane and went home, and he never did a thing, not one thing. It didn't happen. And Colombia did nothing. Why? Well, Colombia has more than 1.4 million Venezuelans in it that are there illegally. These people are there. You and I have seen that. We've been down there, and man, they are overrun in Colombia with Venezuelans fleeing socialism, fleeing all the great benefits of socialism. And so Colombia doesn't want those people. And so Colombia is very happy for those people to go to Panama on the way to the United States. They're not going to stop that. It would not be in Colombia's financial or national best interests for them to put a stop to it, because then all those people would bottle up in Colombia. Now, many of those people have already been in Colombia for years, and they've been making a great life there. They've been doing just fine. I know some of them personally, some of those Venezuelans that have been living in Colombia. It's perfectly possible to build a fine life in Colombia if you're a Venezuelan and you speak the language. But the reason they go beyond that is because they know that right now they need to get while the getting's good, because they can get more money if they go to the United States. The sad thing about that, as you and I both pointed out, is that it's the children who suffer the most. And there are children by the tens of thousands coming through the Darien Gap right now, right in the middle of the rainy season. And it is as miserable as a human being could possibly be in there right now. And many of them are dying, getting washed away in floods. The last journalist group that we sent down there wasn't with you, was a Newsmax crew. The day they got there, they had 160 migrants drown that day, in one day, coming through the Darien Gap. And I'm sure some of those were children. They've had 39 children, from what I'm told, come out of the Darien Gap without their parents because their parents died in the last 12 months. And you know what? Most of those kids can hardly even speak. They're too young. They're babies. And so they don't know, they don't have papers. They don't know where they're from. They don't know who they belong to. They don't know what country they come from. They don't know what their names are. So they've got them living in hospitals and hotels in Panama City while they try to figure out who they belong to. And if they can't figure it out, they just they name them Jose, put them into school, and they don't really have a good foster care system here in Panama. So that's pretty bad.